We are live, Davian.
Hello, social media world. Hello, Facebook. Hello, everyone. This is Unleashed Thursday. We are back in the lab, and we are a couple of days from Election Day. We have a great show. I don't want to prolong the show. We have great information for our listeners. I want you to share this information. I'm hoping everyone in the state of Tennessee early voted. Today was the last day in the state of Tennessee, and I'm hoping that you voted in the surrounding states. But I don't want to prolong the show. Let's get this great show started. We have a great man on this show, and I will let my mom introduce this great man, and we can just dive into this conversation. But hey, share this video with everybody on the social media. Let them know we're live. Let them know we are broadcasting live from Memphis, Tennessee. This is Unleashed Thursday.
So welcome again, social media world, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. We on all streaming on all social media channels. We got all cylinders open today. So we got a big voice, a legend in the studio with us today in our community. I mean, hey, you've been doing the work. You're a pioneer, and we're going to give you flowers while you are alive. So I can't run down all the accolades that this man has, but right now he's the president and CEO of the Center of Black Equity out of Washington, D.C. And if you don't know who the organization is, we'll know by the time we finish this show today. So Earl Fowlkes, we're gonna let you toot your own horn to come in to just give a little background. And people like your receipts. They want to make sure you're credible, especially when you're talking to them and giving them advice. And I know at one point you did some work under President Obama. I wasn't really sure what that was, but I'll let you share that information with our viewers. And come on in. Welcome to Unleashed Thursday.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you. Memphis has a very special place in my heart. I've spent a lot of time there working with Anthony Hardaway and some other people over the course of time. And I always have a good time in Memphis, and I've always enjoyed your pride. And I hopefully COVID-19 will be over soon. And if next year, if not the year after, I'll be in Memphis once again to be part of the community. You have a vibrant community, and you cover 3 states, and you cover a lot of territory that is often overlooked in the big picture of things. Especially, Memphis is a big city, but you're surrounded by rural areas. And it's very important that you do the outreach and connect with those people and bring them into the fold. I run the Center for Black Equity. I started the organization with some other co-founders 21 years ago, and started getting involved in politics when I was a little kid. My parents, I had a stay-at-home mom, which I did not appreciate at the time, but I do now. And she made my brother and I watch the conventions, the Democratic and Republican conventions, since we were kids. I was like 8 years old. I started watching the conventions, and we thought they were boring. The only thing that was exciting about the convention is that unlike today, they were not as scripted. And so every time someone's name was placed in the nomination, all his supporters would walk up and down the aisles with a band, and balloons would fly down from the ceiling. And I thought it was a party. It was really a lot more spontaneous, a lot more enjoyable. And that's how I got my feet wet. And and right now, what Gwen was referring to is in 2009, I was appointed to the Democratic National Committee as a large representative. There are 465 approximate members of the Democratic National Committee. The Democratic National Committee is the ruling body of the Democratic Party. In 2013, I was elected chair of the LGBT caucus of the Democratic National Committee, and also became a member of the executive committee. And I still hold those positions today. And so, but the reality is I would not be in those positions if it weren't for people like you all who are doing the work on the ground level all over the United States. And people see that, and they want to be connected to that. And that's why I am where I am. You have made me, I'm only as good as the people who are behind me. And if I'm doing well, it's because I have good people like you behind me. So that's me, who I am in a nutshell. Every 4 years, well, it used to be every 4 years, now it's every 2 years. And now it's becoming increasingly every year we have elections. And we used to poo-poo the down ticket elections like city council and county clerk and county council and state reps. Not anymore, because we've learned in the Obama years when we lost almost 1,000 Democratic seats in the state legislature. And what does the state legislature do? They redistrict, they allocate funds, they determine who gets services and who does not. They determine who gets access to healthcare and who does not. And we dug a big hole for ourselves, and we're almost out of the hole. I believe we have about 700 seats we've gotten back, and we have 300 more to get. And I know in Tennessee we have Torian Harris and Brandon Thomas, who are Black gay men who are running for a state rep. And we need more people to step up, because even though you may not win the first time you run, or even the second time you run, it takes a long time for people to get to know who you are, who you stand for, and they want to see consistency. And so it's important that, don't be discouraged if you ran and lost or came in second place or third place, because the reality is the first time you run, most people don't win anyway.
Yeah.
Because they're learning how to run for office. They're learning how to raise funds, how to get volunteers. And God knows you're only as good as many volunteers as you can get under your wing. And I know, Dr. Clemens, you ran for office, and I know you have more than just your mom supporting you. But
that was fun.
I've never run for elected office, and I have no intention of doing so. I will write a check. I will actually make some calls, but I will not stand up on this stage and run for office. I just can't do it. I don't have the temperament.
Me either.
Well, if you don't have it when you start, you have it when you finish.
I agree. Hey, I agree with that.
But the world is changing, and so instead of concentrating in a general election every 4 years, we're learning as the Democratic Party is learning, Black, LGBTQ, same gender loving, queer folks are learning. We have to take every election seriously, from dog catcher to president. And we have to encourage people like you, Dr. Clemens, to run for office, even though it's an uphill battle. You have, and for Black folks in general, we have 6 Black senatorial candidates, including in your state. I believe his name is Bradshaw, Marquita Bradshaw. Bradshaw. Now the chances are she may not win this time. She's behind the poll, but the fact that she's running and she won the primary, and she wasn't expected to win the primary.
Correct.
The fact that Black folks are becoming, are flexing their muscles, and as Black gay folks, as a subgroup of the Black community and the gay community, we're flexing our muscles as well, because we can't depend on other people carrying our water and speaking up for us. We have to speak for ourselves. And also, we're uniquely poised to be able to speak for all parts of our community, the Black part of the community and the LGBT part of the community, because of our experiences of being in the dual communities. Just tell me when to shut up, because I can talk forever.
You're good. You're good.
And so one of my jobs. One of my jobs is to encourage people to run for office, our people to run for office. And this year, and to run for office and to become delegates to the convention. And the Democratic convention, this was the gayest convention we ever had. We had 635 delegates who were LGBTQ. That's an increase of 35 from 2016. We had 30 transgender delegates, and we had almost 2/3 who declared themselves as people of color in the queer delegation. So each year, every 4 years, you see the change that's developing, that we're getting more and more people who are interested in running for office or interested in the political aspects. And this year, we've had over 70 million, I believe 75 million people have voted early. Many of those people are Black, many of those people are queer, and it's quite possible we may have the highest voter turnout since 1900, the year 1900.
Wow.
And because people are, and you saw a couple of days ago, we had the Democratic Party is running ads to show Black gay folks and transgender folks and houseball community people, because no vote should be left on the table.
I agree.
Now, if 77,000 Black gay people in the states of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan had voted in 2016, we would have a different president. And so voting.
I totally agree.
So, and that's where I want to start. So you can ask questions if you wish to.
And also, in the findings, we are discovering that the young people are voting. They're breaking records at 18 to like 25. The demographic they said that did not vote, they're breaking records right now here in 2020 because they're voting. And I hope they're not voting for number 45, but they are breaking records and they are turning out right now.
Well, one of the things we do know is that people who vote early tend to be Democratic. Republicans tend to vote the day of. And your point about younger people voting, I think that has a lot to do with the Black Lives Matter movement. I think it has a lot to do with the social change that people are seeking and experimenting. And it's not just Black people who are voting. There are white young people and the Latino young people, Asian Pacific Island young people, because they want to see a different world, and they understand that part of that change has to come through the political system. And so I've actually, in DC, I stood in line for a half hour to vote yesterday. And I was surprised at how many young people were standing in line voting. And I know many of them are voting for the first time.
Yes.
And it's very encouraging because in 2016, I don't know if it was a candidate that has to be part of it. I don't know if it was the way the campaign was run. That's part of it. But I do know that young people did not come to the polls, and Black people sat on their hands. Then the Black people who did come to the polls, they voted in high percentage for Clinton. But many of us sat on our hands and felt that I want to choose my words carefully. I think that what happens with the Black electorate is that every 4 years, we have to renew the covenant.
Yeah.
And what happened is the campaign did not renew that covenant. And therefore, people were not asked to vote. And you know how we are. We want to be asked. We don't want to be taken for granted. And many people felt that the campaign took Black folks for granted and did not renew the covenant. And that's the one thing the Biden-Harris campaign has been doing. They have not taken us for granted, and they're renewing the covenant, and this asking us once again to support the ticket, and that's going to make a major difference. I think that's the bottom line. It wasn't that we wanted Trump. It's just that we weren't asked to vote against him.
Interesting. Important that we do give as much civic education that we can while you have the people's attention. Because I think a lot of that get lost in the shuffle, like why our vote is important, why our voice is important, and all those little small intricate things, like you said earlier. And I agree with you wholeheartedly.
You touched on a point that I think is often overlooked. When I was a kid, and I'm an older person, I'm a baby boomer. We had civics in school. We were told, election day where I grew up in Pennsylvania, election day was a state holiday, and people, because the schools where the voting took place, and people took off from work to go to vote. We were taught to vote. My grandmother, as I recited on Tuesday, my grandmother took me to the polls when I was 5 years old, and she told me. And I didn't know what she was talking about, but I always remember, you have to vote. You have to vote. It's because colored people didn't always have to vote, and you have to vote. I'm thinking, who are colored people, number one? And secondly, what is voting? And she explained it. And when I got home, she explained it, and my mother explained it, and ad nauseum. But it became part of my DNA. I don't miss any election. I don't care for a school board. I don't care for dog catcher of the year. I don't miss any election. But it was drilled in at home. It was drilled in the school. It was drilled in the church. So you have a generation who doesn't go to church, who didn't learn it in school, and who aren't taught it in family. How do we expect people to know how important it is to vote? What happened this year is that we had this convergence of social uprising and social activism where people are like, wait a minute, I can make a change. I'm the key to that change. If I get all my friends to vote, we can change elections. especially down ballot. You'd be surprised. A couple of hundred votes can change the outcome of any election, as you know, Dr. Clemens. A
Yes,
couple
sir.
hundred votes can make a difference. Now we know, and you know, that those votes were in your district, but we have to work hard and educate our community how important it is to step out and vote. And it's an easy thing to do. It doesn't cost anything. But the more we vote, the more our voices are going to be heard, and we're going to elect people who are going to be looking like us, even though we have to be careful. Some of our skin folk and our kinfolk.
Correct. Kentucky.
Let me get a drink of water because I'm choking on
Right. Right. Because elections have consequences, people.
A great question. We have a question.
Okay.
About what you just said. All skin folks aren't kin folks. I know I'm freezing, but I'm trying to get it in. So the question was, someone just reported that Lil Wayne met with 45, now he's giving his support behind the platinum. Why so many of rich black attracted to this toxic administration?
Well, it's we don't talk about this in our community very often. We don't talk about many things, but one of the things we don't talk about or acknowledge is the class differences that we have in our community.
Absolutely.
Black folks have the class strata, a structure that is equal to any of the European countries, including the United Kingdom. We can cut you aside because of your education, where you decide a town you grew up in, what high school you went to, what church you belong to, what fraternal organization you belong to, what the Masons, the Shriners. We have a million ways of slicing it. And what happens? There are people who believe that Trump represents an economic difference, and they want to be part of that economic difference. And also, there's another part of this that we don't remember, is that Black folks used to vote Republican.
Yes.
And there's not that many left. Mm-hmm. But there's still some, and the first Black senator was a Republican, Edward Brooke the third, who represented Massachusetts from 1967 to 1971. He was a Black Republican, and he was a liberal. Mm-hmm. So Black folks, so for us in the more modern days, thinking about Black folks voting Republican or being Republican, it makes us shudder. But actually, there's a tradition. And many of those people are upper class people or well educated, and they're business people. And Trump, until COVID-19, did create advantages for people who are rich and for advantages for people who have businesses. And I don't necessarily consider them sellouts. I think that if you weigh the benefit of being a Republican and being for Trump. It depends on what side of the fence you're sitting on. If you're a business person, Trump is speaking your language. Deregulation, opening up lands, amusement park, opening up our parks and our facilities for logging and digging for gold and digging for coal. If you're a business person, you want to be with Trump. But Trump's disregard for human rights, Trump's disregard for the rule of law, Trump's disregard for respect for the people who are different, making fun of disabled people, making fun of women, making fun of Latinos. Those things outweigh any economic advantage, in my opinion. The moral advantage always outweighs the economic advantage.
And matter of fact, to add to that statement, justice is not a business transaction.
No, it's a moral transaction,
and that's the problem. And hey, the Lil Waynes, the 50 Cent, the Ice Cubes, all those guys are millionaires. So hey, I'm like you. I won't call them a sellout, but they're protecting their assets and their money. That's all they're trying to do.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But
Kanye
West.
Well, that's the mental illness going on with there, and that
agreed.
But making money is the American way. Making money is the way we were raised. We're raised to be capitalists. We're raised to be, the strongest will survive. The weak will get what crumbs are left over the table. And so we're economic. Our economic system We used to work for many, many years, but now our economic system is in danger because it's not working. We don't have a middle class anymore.
No.
Either you're very rich or you're working class or poor and you're struggling to make ends meet. We don't have a middle class because those institutions that were middle class are being torn aside. You know, it used to be if you worked at the post office, that was a great job. That was for many, many Black people. That was the way to middle class, the post office. Now they're trying to get rid of the post office. They're trying to cut their pay. They devalue civil servants. Civil servants was another way for Black folks to get to middle class, and many other Americans to get to middle class. The military was the way to get to the middle class. Those institutions are being torn away and weakened, and the pathway to middle class has become more narrow and narrow. You know, I have a nephew who went to law school, and he has a 6-figure debt to pay for his law school. You know, he's going to be spending the rest of his life paying off his law school loans. And going to college is great if you can afford it.
And that's why it's important when Biden and Harris win the election on November the 3rd. Is it 3rd or 2nd?
3rd.
The 3rd, that we as a community at large keep pressure on them regarding the student loan debt, regarding the reparation for Black folk, regarding just helping people get bootstraps. You can't tell me to pull myself up by my bootstraps. I don't have any damn boots. And so we don't have anything. And so we have to keep the pressure on them. And I believe they have an open ear and they're listening. And we need to see some movement. And once we see this movement, we can get the people out of these holes, eliminate some of this student loan debt. We can get this economy back rolling. And you are correct. I should not go to school for several years to want to better myself and graduate and have 6-figure debt for student loan. That's ridiculous. And when we have the richest country in the world.
Well, and the other thing is that it's great for people to go to college, but you know, you look at our communities, we don't have people to do a shoemaker. You know, a shoemaker was an honorable profession. We can all be barbers and hairdressers, but there are other, you know, electricians, bricklayers. You know, there are some people who don't want to go to college. They want to have a trade, and those need to be encouraged and need to be lifted up in our communities too. You know, we only think about a plumber when we need one, and then we can't find a plumber. Then we're all upset. We need to encourage our people to be plumbers, and not just men to be plumbers, the women to be plumbers, transgender men and women to be plumbers. Imagine if you're a transgender woman and you're a good plumber, how many people will overlook you being transgender?
True.
And you coming to fix the pipes that are broken at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, and you forget about that person being a transgender, won't you? And the price is right. So it's amazing. The key to recognition and acceptance is to be seen in society as a contributing member of society. That's very important.
I like that. Hey, Earl, let's jump to this survey that that you were very instrumental behind, and the survey to count Black LGBT individuals in our community. Let's talk about why it matters. And I'm going to get the link, and we're going to post this link and get individuals who have not completed it to complete it, because the deadline is tomorrow.
Tomorrow at midnight.
Midnight.
So the history, this is our second survey. The first survey was in 2014. And the purpose of the survey is part consumer, is part gauging people's social interests and their economic interests. There have been surveys done around the country for LGBTQ folks, but we've never had enough people to measure accurately the Black opinions in our community. And so in 2014, we worked with a community marketing and initiative to develop a survey that was geared towards Black folks who consider themselves of African descent or Black or whatever people want to call themselves these days. But and this was to measure the temperature. You know, we don't know what Black queer folks want to watch on television. We don't know what we like cars. We don't know how we vote. We don't know what's important to us. What issues are important. You know, HIV/AIDS is always assumed to be number one, but we find out that there's other issues that people are important in our community too. Other health disparities that we need to be looking at, like, you know, like for example, women's breast cancer and cervical cancer. Black lesbians have a very high rate of cancer. Those things are important in our community. It's not always about what we think we see. And so we had a great deal of success from the 2014 survey. And so we decided, given all that's going on with COVID-19, given all that's going on with the political climate we're living in and the racial injustice situations that we've been enduring, what are important to Black LGBTQ same gender loving queer folks? And that's what the survey is so important, that we get people to fill the survey, not just people who live in California and live in New York. We tend to do well on the coast in the Northeast and the Northwest, but we need to get to middle America, where most Black queer people live. In the South, in the Midwest, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, all the former states are in the Confederacy. That's where most Black people live, and therefore that's where most Black gay folks live. And we need to really have a strong showing. We're doing okay. I think we're going to hit. The goal is 2,000, and I think we're very close to that. But if any of you who are out there who have not filled the survey out, please do so. It takes about 10, 15 minutes, and I understand they're giving out. We're giving out 20 prizes, and it's very important. It's like voting. It's like voting. Your opinion won't count unless you participate.
Amen. As a matter of fact, It was a question on the survey. For everyone who's watching, go to tuvmag.com. Gwen wrote an article about the survey. Click on the link inside the article, and it will direct you straight to the survey. And so it was a question in the survey about predatory lending. And I remember when I first bought our home in 2005, we were a victim of predatory lending, of a 2-year balloon interest rate loan that skyrocketed. And so it's important that we document these things. We talk about these things. We share our experiences so individuals will not go down the same path, so they'll be aware. And so I was really intrigued when I saw that question on the survey about predatory lending.
Well, because so many of us are victims of, as you said, of predatory lending. And in the housing crisis of 2008, 2009, many people in our community, I know many friends who lost their homes because they had these balloon interest rates, and they exploded upon them, and they couldn't afford them, and they lost everything.
Yeah.
Because you're taught that your home, if you don't, if you have a home, you somehow made it in middle class America. But it's becoming more difficult to get interest rates for Black folks because we're victims of redlining, predatory lending, and out and out discrimination. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to let you in a little secret. I have not made this public yet, but the Center for Black Equity, along with a member of the Houston Splash, we're actually in a coalition with a group of people looking at opening a credit union.
You know what? And so I've been really digging into and reading about Black nationalism. And I am a component of, my granddad always said this, let me go back. He said segregation kind of ruined the Black family, the Black culture. When we desegregated, he said, because we had the banks, we had the doctors, we had so on and so on. And then once we migrated with the white folk, we said, we don't need it anymore. And he said, but before then, we had it going on. We had everything we needed. And he said that kind of ruined the Black culture, desegregation.
Well, someone once said that we wanted when the segregation ended, we were the first ones to go to the counter to get a $5 hamburger from the white businessman, but we didn't figure out a way of making the 5 cents. And so the fact of the matter is that I grew up in a neighborhood where there were Black business people, and that's going back to my thought about trade. A baker, Black bakers, Black plumbers, Black electricians, Black pharmacists. In days of segregation, rich Black folks and the doctors and professors lived next to the poor with the trash man. We lived in the same community, and when segregation ended, which it should have ended, the people who had the means left the Black neighborhood, and what you have left is which is as bad as apartheid. Every Black community, every city has a Soweto.
Yeah.
where the police come in and invade the community from time to time, where you have predatory lending, where you have only fast food restaurants, you have hairdressers and barbershops, and you have bad schools, bad city services, bad access to health, and it does everything is in a negative. And that's what Soweto was like, and it still is to a certain extent today. That's what segregation. And so when white people stood up for black folks to end segregation, they also knew that it was a business deal, a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that to be in a negative way, but you open up your business to, if you're denying 25% of the population access to your business, that cuts into revenue. So when you open up, so what happened and what businesses suffered? Black businesses. So people thought by going to the white dentist and going to the white bakery and going to the white food stand was somehow better quality than the black one. And they decided to spend their money in the white community. So what do we have in black communities? We have businesses in black communities that are owned by black folks. Mm-hmm. And I'm not angry at the different ethnic groups that have come in to buy things because they pulled their money together. And that's the other thing that we lost through slavery and we get angry when Koreans come in and Jamaicans come in and other ethnic groups come in and they pulled their funds together and they'll buy a business and sleep on the floor in the upstairs business for years until they were able to get a strong start. We lost that when we were torn from our homeland and enslaved. We lost the sense of community. Mm-hmm. And we get angry, but we see other people come who bring that community. The people who open the businesses in our community, they don't get loans from banks traditionally. Most don't. They're victims of predatory lending as the way we are. They pull their money together many times. Yeah. And they'll buy a business. We lost, and how many of us really want to stand in business with our brothers and sisters and live in a one room apartment, one bedroom apartment with brothers and sisters for 5 years until our business gets going? Most of us aren't willing to do that. And that those hardships, because we lost that sense of community and we lost that sense of supporting one another and that sense of family. It's always interesting when I lived in New York and I see you go into communities where people come from different countries all over the world, Africa, the Caribbean, South America, Europe, and they go to places where their friends or people who came before. And so you have like one building would be all Jamaican. And it may have been one person who was Jamaican who started that. And then when the apartment came open, they called one of their friends and their families, and the building becomes Jamaican, the community becomes Jamaican. We don't do that. We try to run away from black folks as opposed to joining with them.
I think just an example. Once that endeavor comes to fruition that you just mentioned about the credit union, I think that will show more black people with monies to put their monies and resources together, like the family up in Georgia who bought all of that land to build that compound on. And I was talking to my mom about this. Unity and harmony is the only way we as black folk can come out of that hole. And until we learn or unlearn what that devil white man taught us and learn unity and harmony amongst us, we will continue to go through this, walk around that wall of Jericho, just walking and walking and walking. But if we learn unity and harmony, we will get through that wall one day. And that's a great example of what you guys are doing. And I hope that endeavor comes to fruition. And I'm behind you 100%. And I'll open up me a credit card or an account down there when it comes open.
Well, thank you for that. And, if you look at the resilience of black folks, because I've been talking more negative issues, but you look at the resilience of black folks, the fact that we have been able to endure this 401 year of racism, the police murders, and this phenomena of police killings is not new.
No, at all. Cameras.
People are videoing it. It's been consistent for years. We all know this. We knew what happened if we get stopped by a white police officer in certain communities, whether it's the North, the West, or the East, and the South. That everyone has that same conversation. We've been having the same conversation my father gave to me is the same one that I give to my great nephews. It hasn't changed. But what happens is we allow, and then to make it worse, crack was introduced to our community, substances were introduced to our community, and then illegal guns were introduced to our communities. You know, we weren't making guns. Black folks don't make guns. We have to buy them. Someone has to sell them to us, and so now the police are saying, well, you know, we're going to reform our policing, but what about all this gun violence? More black folks are shooting black folks than the police are shooting us. You know, I don't know how it is in Memphis, but our crime, our murder rate is record this year in Washington, D.C. And it's black on black crime. And it's frustration with COVID. It's frustration of not having a job. It's frustration of just being worn down every day by racism and discrimination. And people get tired of it and they start lashing out. And the mental health issues, that poor man in Philadelphia whose family called the ambulance because he was having a mental health breakdown, and the police comes and shoots him 13 times in front of his family and residents. The family, they wanted an ambulance.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with this kind of systemic racism and pressure and emotional being torn apart and thrown in jail for possessing ounces of marijuana and stuff that white college students do all the time, it wears you down and you become dehumanized. And mental health issues are something that is very rampant in our community. It's time we start confronting them and acknowledging them and dealing with them. We have mental health issues, and many of this is caused by systemic racism.
We have inherited trauma as well that we've inherited from back to 400 years ago and on and on and on. So our people have been damaged, and that's why it's so important for us to be empathetic towards each other, to lend a helping hand, to recommend counseling for each other, to talk about getting these services, to discuss our anxiety and things of that nature. So we have to be transparent with each other and refer each other over to try to heal each other, because we all black folks are broken because we got the inherited trauma from the very beginning.
Yes. You know, I ran into a friend of mine a few months ago who was, her child did something. It wasn't a few months ago, it was last year, about a year ago. And she whipped, and she took her belt off, said, I'm going to whip you. And she took her belt off and she hit the child a couple of times. And and she said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I said, you know why you whip your child, don't you? You know, because he's bad. I said, no, because that's the way we were taught. That's how slaves were whipped when we were bad.
True.
I said, so your whipping was done in slavery times to break the spirit of the slave, to get them to be more complacent and to be more, to just follow the rules. And I said, and when you beat your child with a belt, you take your belt, that's the same as whipping them, a slave being whipped by an overseer. I said, we have to learn ways. I have a sister, I have a brother who has never hit his kids, and one's a police officer and one's an attorney. You don't have to hit your kids to discipline them. But this is all we know because this is what we were shown. And we have to break those chains. And it's not just breaking the chains of economic slavery or social slavery, it's breaking the chains of some of the things that we pass down from generation to generation, whipping our kids. No, we don't have to whip them. That doesn't change. That doesn't make them better kids.
I totally agree. Let's change the subject
I would say, hold on before you change the subject. They take that good scripture out of King James. They say, don't spare the rod on your child. So that's why, and they take it to heart.
Spare the rod and spoil the child.
Yep. So the Bible, some of them take it literally and figuratively, and they do it. It's what I meant. They take it literally, and they really believe it in all their heart because Grandpa said it and Big Mom said it.
That's right.
And, they believe in that rod. But I also told them, I was on a conversation. I told some women, I said, so did you also know that the rule of thumb was an old English law that the husband could beat the wife with a stick? It just had to be the size of his thumb. So that's where the phrase rule of thumb comes from. I said, so be careful.
That's right.
Yeah. what you continue to pass on, from legends and tradition. Be careful about that.
You're absolutely correct.
But so we want last 15 minutes to talk about this really, really topic: one vote and why the Black LGBTQ vote matters. Why does it matter? You hit on last night, and I wonder, I don't know if you can remember. Oh, there you go. Black Lives Matter. You need all at the top. So why does the Black LGBTQIA vote plus matters?
Because, we are starting to realize our political muscle. The last election, as I said, there's 77,000 votes in 3 states in Michigan. Now think of how many Black gay folks live in Detroit. And then you have Pennsylvania. Think how many live in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Then you have Wisconsin. Think of Milwaukee and Madison. If 77,000 Black gay folks alone have voted, not just Black folks, not just gay folks, Black gay folks, people who look like you and I, the election would have turned out differently. The vote counts because, first of all, it's the franchise. We didn't get the franchise until 1866. Mm-hmm. And then we lost it through Jim Crow. And by 1900, we lost for most Black people who lived, especially lived in the South where most Black people live, we lost the vote. And we got it back in the 1960s and the 70s. So we haven't really had to vote. We've actually not had to vote longer than we've had it. And the change the South, by Black folks changing the South has changed. And that's why places like Atlanta and Charlotte and people are moving back to those places because there's this life there, there's vigor, there's land, there's opportunity. And if we want to have, as Black queer folks, if we want to have opportunities, we need to elect people who know our story, who are empathetic to our story. Now, they don't necessarily have to be queer, but they have to be people who know who we are. And if you remember when Biden was about to be kicked out of the race, he's in South Carolina, Congressman Claiborne said, he knows us and we know him. Yeah. And the fact that's so important, that we know who these people are. And I'm not saying vote because you have to vote. Vote because you need to vote. Vote because our lives are depending on it. Police reform. The next administration is going to be taking up police reform. And I have a certain feeling about police reform, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the fact of the matter is that we need people who are going to push, say the word Black LGBTQ. We suffer from in the Black community, we suffer from the trauma of homophobia and transphobia. In the white community, LGBT community, we suffer from the trauma of racism and discrimination.
You say that we had a Black trans woman to be murdered here last Sunday, and within the article, the police or the news media referred to her, she, and then a witness said he, and they never said the word transgender in the article, and so that just gave me some more reassurance to what you were saying regarding your statement, how in the South, where we have the largest numbers of LGBT individuals living, we have the most living in the South, we're still discriminated against in these articles, and when they die in 2020, and so that just put more lighter fluid on your fire that you're talking about.
And was that in the Memphis commercial appeal?
It was on WREG News Channel 3 where they said her and he and she and him. Say the damn word. The woman was a transgender, a Black transgender. Say the word.
And that's very important what you say, because transgender men and women carry a disproportionate weight of the prejudice towards LGBTQ people. Yes. They carry the heaviest burden. And it's important for people who are not transgender to speak up on their behalf. And I'm glad you raised that issue, because every time I go into a space, I talk about transgender, and people are like, "Oh, are you transgender?" I said, "No." And you know what? Some of the worst prejudice towards transgenders come from Black gay men.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God.
I
was raised by a Black transgender. My aunt was transgender. I had, unbeknownst to me, until when she died in '89. I had no idea my aunt was transgender. That was my auntie. And I used to like to hang with my auntie. She could cook and she was beautiful. So, and so, but black gay men, oh my God, we are so hypocritical and homophobic. And okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. That's a whole other topic.
And you're correct. I grew up. My great uncle was gender nonconforming, Uncle Tim. With how Uncle Tim was going to be dressed when he came to the house. He lived with my great grandmother, and Uncle Tim would be sometimes in a nightgown and some fuzzy slippers, or Uncle Tim. But Uncle Tim had 8 big brothers who were football players, and no one bothered Uncle Tim in the neighborhood. Yeah. And I never heard anyone in our family say anything about Uncle Tim. So I grew up knowing that being different was okay. Being different, and I think when black folks started shedding the cloak of prejudice and homophobia and self-hatred, being a person who is who's a transgender woman or a feminine man or a butch woman, that does not impact my life at all. It does not impact how I live. It doesn't impact how I go about my day-to-day activities. So why do you have to say something about it? What difference does it make to you? Live your own life and take care of your own business. As I was raised, take care of your own business and let people take care of their own business. I worked in Atlanta years ago. I was living in Atlanta, and I had this woman named Miss Effie. And there was another gay guy who worked in the employee cafeteria, and I'm going to call him Jeff. I can't think of his name. Let's call him Jeff. And one day, Jeff said, "Miss Effie, you know what I'm going to do for you?" She goes, "What?" "When I win the $1 million lottery, I'm going to give you some money." She goes, "Really? Why are you going to do that?" "That's a wonderful thing you do. What a blessing." He said, "Because I want you to buy a business so you can tend to your business, and I can buy a business I can tend to my own." So the fact of the matter is that stay out of people's business. So what the person is transgender, that has nothing. That doesn't make you less of a man or less of a woman. That's foolish. We're our worst home, worst enemy. I'm sorry.
I like that. Hey, that in the words of my old pastor, that shall live again.
Tend to your business. So why does the transgender I see trans, and some of them can't afford to dress the way they would want to and may not look as sharp or as others. But so what? We need to focus on ourselves, and when we focus on ourselves and make ourselves better people, then we can make better contributions to the whole. And I think that's where we need to start from. And that's what vote. You're voting for your loved ones. You're voting because your grandparents didn't have the right to vote, and people died voting. People were lynched when they were voting. People were shot up at the polls. And you look at, and that was years and years ago. Now look, the white structure, the political structure is trying to teach us not to vote. We don't learn civics in school. They put voting polls and the voting booths way out of the mainstream. Louisville, Kentucky had one voting center for the last primary for the whole city of 600,000 people. That's done on purpose. That's to dilute our strength and dilute our numbers, because that's why the Democratic Party is so strong in the South. It's not because of white people, because of black folks.
I agree.
And now, imagine what do you think about what Texas is doing?
Texas is another country. But yet it's like trying to put hide the sun with your thumb. The fact of the matter is they're not going to be able to stop it forever. That's why they're being so visceral about it, because they know the day is coming. They know that we're getting our strength. We're starting to come out and vote. We're starting to participate in democracy. We're starting to run candidates. And soon, when we start learning how to do more better allyship and more working with other racial groups and other people and building coalitions, and as we're learning how to do that, the white construct of politics is going to be finished in this country. This country is becoming more and more brown and black. And politicians know this. That's why they're trying to stack the Supreme Court. And that's why, I used to be against expanding the Supreme Court, but the Constitution doesn't say you can't do it. And so one of the first things I hope that the Biden administration does is they're going to put together a committee to look at changing the Supreme Court, because the fact of the matter is that we have no chance of anything coming that's going to be pro-Black in this Supreme Court. And if you think about the other 300 judges that were appointed as well, most of those people barely finished law school. There's a lifetime appointment. I don't believe in lifetime appointments. No one should be in an office for the entire life.
I was about to say that should be revisited as well. So if any politician is listening, we should revise the United States Constitution because it was not written for Black folk. That needs to be revised and revisited. We also should revisit, like you said, these lifetime appointments. I think 12 years is enough. Get their asses out those seats and put new people in that seat, because
right.
I totally agree. Lifetime is because, matter of fact, okay, just think about it. If you're sitting in this court generation after generation, you don't even understand the generation you're voting on because you're not even part of that generation.
Well, and these people who they're appointing, they don't care about generation. They have a philosophy that is anti-Black, anti-queer, anti-anything that's different than what they are with the way they live. These nationalist groups are growing and growing and being empowered. And believe me, if this election is close and Trump loses, there's going to be some rioting in our streets on either side, because in DC, all the windows downtown are being boarded up.
Really?
They're being boarded up because they're afraid of what's the reaction. If the Republicans win, they're emboldened now. They're coming with their guns, walking through the streets. If the Democrats lose, then the young people who for the first time voted will feel that their vote was wasted, and they're going to do the alternative. The alternative for democracy is fascism.
It's going to be, matter of fact, it's a new malicious group, a Black group. I think they're called Not Fucking Around or something like that. It's a new Black militia group, and they are going around to new cities, different cities, recruiting. It's called, the name of the group is NFAC. And
yes, I've read it.
And not fucking around coalition. And they say that they are about justice, reform, and they're about bringing a politician to the table. And they say they're going to get things done by any means necessary. And they say you can take that anywhere you want to take it. And they have thousands of members right now, starting at 18. So it's going to be a bad day if they decide to do anything, like you said, on election day. Go ahead.
Well, and the sad thing about what's going on, and this is one of my major problems with Trump. I think the two-party system, I still believe in it somewhat, the two-party system. I think it's the way we've always had things. But when one party is always negative and one party is always for the people, it causes these rifts. It's almost like a civil war. Every election is like the repeat of the Civil War. I mean, there used to be a time when there were conservative Democrats and liberal Republicans, and you had to negotiate to get things done. Now you have moderate to liberal politicians who are Democrats, and you have conservative to maybe one moderate Republican. And that's drawing that line is not the best way for a democracy to exist, and it doesn't benefit people. So either you're one or the other. And for Black folks, and it's a dilemma because Black folks aren't really as liberal as people think they are. We're not really liberal people at all. We're more tradition, and some of our traditions are based on some bad habits formed many years ago and taught to us. So when you're Black and you have to pick between liberal and you're not liberal and Republican, it's a dilemma for some Black folks, and which is another reason why some Black folks vote for Republicans, because they don't believe in abortion. They don't believe in women's right to choose. They don't believe in public schools. They don't believe in a lot of things that are very beneficial to the Black community. And they certainly don't believe in LGBTQ rights. Somehow me having a right to be a full citizen of this country threatens people, which is bizarre.
Yes, I totally agree. So we are about 3 minutes before our ending time. Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers? Anything you would like to say regarding CBE work? You have the mic. It's on you, brother.
Well, I can tell you, I want to acknowledge my friends who from Arkansas and Mississippi. I went to, as opposed to talking to CBE work, I want to talk about you guys' work, because the CBE is the strongest and our weakest member. And we have some incredible members. And you guys, you people are my go-to when I need to have someone talk on the national level about stuff that's going on in Tennessee, because you're doing the work, you're running for office, you're registering people. That's what we need to happen in every community. And the CBE, the next year is going to be an exciting year for us. I'm going to give you a little hint of some things. We're going to be doing some public policy work, not just on the national level, but local level and the state level. So we will be giving you some tools when you go to City Hall and go to the county executive, when you go to the State House in Nashville, that you'll have some facts and some tools to go to lead your discussion. We're going to be doing a leadership training institute where we'll be training our leaders and giving them the skills to stand up against, to stand up to leaders and politicians who, you know, when you walk into the door, do not have your best interests at heart. But you still have to talk to them. You still have to negotiate with them, and that's a skill set that we're going to be training all of our leaders to do in the next couple of years. And also, we're going to be providing more financial support to our members and help them build up their organization. Not just to do Pride. Pride is a gate, that's a carrot to get people into the door, so we can build a stronger community.
I totally agree. I'm all about empowering our people. I'm all about acquiring land, businesses. I want to be my own boss, and I want to hire people. I'm tired of working for people and people writing my check. Let me write some checks. And so I'm down for it. I'm totally down for it. I'm tired of asking our enemies for stuff. I don't want to ask my enemy for nothing. I want them to come to me and ask me for something. So I'm with you 110%.
We have to do it for ourselves. We're not going to get.
You know what? I think this topic is so important because I put up a post, and so what really came to mind writing the post was that shrinking down, right, and deferring our empowerment to other people, because we're just as qualified to handle and to do everything we need to do for our own selves. So I think that that's one of the things, to me, I want to be taken away from this show tonight, that, like you said, visibility and representation matters. And that's why our Black LGBTQ vote matters.
Right.
Because we're a large consumer. It's been documented how much money that we spend a year in the economy alone.
Billions of dollars.
Just us, not the Black people, the Black gay community. Right. So our vote matters, and they know we're here because they courting us every time it's election season.
That's right.
So they particularly seek out the Black LGBTQ community. They mean politicians to rally and to mobilize us to get us to endorse them. So it matters. We don't have to shrink down when we walk in the room or defer our empowerment to other people, because we have individuals in our community that are positioned and qualified to step in and handle the business.
And the last thing I'm going to say is, you know, so many things go with the vote. You know, we have kids in school, so school board is important. You know, we have, you know, we have farms and businesses, so those positions are important. We are in every part of our segment of society. So therefore, you know, we're voting for betterment of our lives and our children and our families' lives. And it's so important that we remember that every election is important, no matter who it is, to make sure that the more that they come for our vote, the more we're going to get in the long run.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, we did it, and we appreciate you. And I want our listeners to, if you have not voted yet, it's okay. Election day, please get there and vote on election day. I think most jobs allow 2 to 3 hours. Matter of fact, in Birmingham, the mayor made it a national holiday. He declared a national holiday in Birmingham. So Birmingham city government shut down for people to go vote. So
that's the way it used to be.
I love it. So, hey man, pressure your job. I think it's a federal law that you have 2 hours to go vote.
I don't think
federal law.
No, voting is done by the states.
So it's a state law here in Tennessee. They give us 2 hours on election day.
Voting is done by states.
That should be a federal law.
Mm-hmm.
Well, voting reform is definitely something we need to look at.
Yes, that should be a federal holiday, election day.
Well, if we elect the right people to Congress, it may happen.
Yes, I love it. Hey, wear your mask.
And I know you said you didn't want to run for political office, but I was going to tell you, when you win, come get us.
No, I'm going to come and work in your campaign down there. No. No, you got to be younger, and I'm too old to do all that. That's you got to be young.
Listen, we ready to move. Long as they have airplane, I can commute back and forth.
No, we need you in Tennessee. We can't have a brain drain. No, talent drain. We need people to stay where they are and to build up their community. Not everyone can come to DC and Atlanta. No. It's too expensive up here. You can't afford to live. It's too expensive. You do better. If I were younger, I would move to a place like Birmingham, or I would even move to Selma if I were younger. Where you can move, a handful of people can make a major difference in the community. We need to train people, empower them, give them the tools so they can make their communities better and stronger. That's what I'm about.
So we got one question that just popped up, and then we'll wrap it up. So we were doing our civic education, and the question came up about why don't they let people with felonies vote? Some
do, and some states do, and some states don't.
Correct.
It's a state law. I believe that once you paid you did your time and paid your debt to society, as they say, you are full. You don't lose your citizenship because you went to jail.
Right.
You're still an American citizen. Once you're a citizen, you're always a citizen.
See, they have a process where felons have their voters restored, the voter restoration. So I think it's a time period, and that they also have to pass that time period, no more actions with the law, and then they petition the court, and then they have letters of reference, like from the community.
Well, who's going to do all
and
that?
And then they go before it goes.
That's the process. That's a full-time job.
It's a process.
I don't think that people should.
Well, it's not.
I don't think convicted felons should lose the right to vote. I don't. That's wrong. I don't think that's fair.
I agree.
Well, you know why they put that in place in the first place. That's a form of white supremacy.
Because most people who are in jail are black men, and increasingly black women.
Right. Absolutely. And here's a comment. So they do have voter restoration. For anybody that's listening in the state of Tennessee, I would definitely get that information and put it up there if you know someone that want to restore their voting rights.
That's very important.
So I think that's all we saw on here. And remember, if you missed early voting, please go and vote Tuesday, November the 3rd. I think we're going to have a watch party or something. I can't take it by myself.
Yeah, then I'm going to have to go someplace as well because my nerves. I need some medicine.
Everybody going to need some medicine.
And don't be surprised if we go to bed on the 3rd and not know who won the presidency.
Yeah, correct. You are absolutely correct. So, well, brother, folks,
they're going to try to do it again.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for stepping up and working in Memphis and doing the work you do. I really appreciate both of you. You are two people I admire, and I'm going to call upon you time and time again because you're doing the work, and you are worthy of my support, and my support, and the organization's support, and the community support. And when you run for office next time, I'm going to throw a fundraiser for you. That's a promise. A fundraiser.
I'm gonna hold you to that one. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Right.
I'm coming to DC.
Everyone does, and I'm willing to do it. It's not a problem.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to that. I thank you again, sir. Thank you.
Pleasure. Take care.
All right. Bye, y'all. We about to wrap up. We about to wrap up. Bye, y'all.
We would definitely, if we need you, will you come back?
Always. All you do is ask.
It's been great, y'all. Gotcha.
You need to take your computer and throw it out the window.
Guess on now.
You still live. Your computer is horrible. Just take your computer and go in your hallway and throw it down that garbage can.
You can click off.
Oh my.
I know.
Keep it equal. Get in GQ for LGBTQ. We keep it simple, but keep it